Hi guys, this is Wenzes from Below the Radar Above the System, and today I want to talk to you about trusting, and that it's much more about how you trust than who you trust, because I think we very often go through life and have a question of morality, as in how much can we trust that person and how much should we trust that person. And it's very often a dilemma, because on the one hand, if you do not trust people, if you think they're like bad or something, then it makes you bitter and it makes you go through life much harder. And even if you're not that person, you'll see people around you who are like this, and you kind of feel for them that they are not trusting. And on the other hand, you can have that extreme where you want to trust people to the very last core. Like, they can treat you like shit, they can treat you horrible, but you still trust that they're good people, because this is what gives you some kind of security in life. And trusting is very important, because if you do not trust other people, if you do not trust that they're doing their best, this is what Brene Brown said, that assuming that they're doing their best, then if you don't do that, then life becomes very, very hard. And she also said this thing about that it's not like you know that people are doing their best and they want to be the best person they can be, but if you assume that, then life gets easier. And then she talked about how the first 35 years of her life, she went through life and thought everybody is trying to do her bad or trying to hurt her and so on, just because people are mean. And I was the exact opposite. I always thought people are doing everything they can, they don't know better, they're suffering so much and so on. And both extremes are never healthy, because both people are not going through life the most positive way. They're not enforcing change, they're not enforcing growth, they're not living their best version of their lives, and are always feeling like the world is against them or things are not going their way. And I've seen with INFJs both extremes, to be honest with you. Normally they say that INFJs tend to believe all the best in people, but sometimes maybe that is who they used to be, but some people have been hurt so much that they get this attitude of everybody's against me and I have to be against everybody and so on. And there is actually a very easy way to solve this thing if you really think about it from a logical perspective. And the thing is this: know for once, yes, if you assume that people are good, and if you're in a kind of dilemma and you start building resentment towards somebody, you try to calm yourself down and say, okay, they don't know any better, that's okay, they're doing their best. If you try to do that, then life actually does become easier and healthier. And there's the question, if you also take if you not only say that to that person, but you also do not allow them to treat you like that anymore. And this is another thing I learned through the years and through seeing different perspectives and so on. It's actually much easier to assume that somebody is good if you keep them at a distance, in general. And that also includes setting boundaries. And setting boundaries is sometimes very difficult for some people. I've also had people ask me just in the groups and so on, how can I allow myself to be happy? How can I allow myself to be whole? And the solution for me has been to really say, I don't like this. I think this is awful. Stop it. And to say it in that kind of way that you feel it. Because what my main problem was that I knew that something bothered me about the other person. I really knew that, but I knew the way I would say it, I didn't have a right. That's how I felt. I felt, who am I to tell that person what to do? But here comes the thing. You can always say it. You can always say it as long as you're not, continuously hurting that other person, like telling them, you're dumb, whatever it is, just, to hurt that person. But if you're really saying something coming from a good place and then just building yourself up to a point where they just really stop doing this to you and stop giving you anything. If you build yourself up, then you don't have to have a bad conscience that you're too cruel or so on. But the thing is this, we normally don't do that. We don't push people out that much because then we fill a void. And there we come back to this point that it's better to have a void and to kind of fill it up on your own than to allow people in your space that are, are hurting you in places that maybe they don't even know about. You know how much easier it is for me now that I have firm boundaries and more. It's not just that I have firm boundaries, but my boundaries that used to be here are now here. This is what Richard Grennan said in one video, and I like it. It makes so much sense. It really feels like normally you let people in so deeply into you, and now you set the boundary right here. And the good thing about this is the further you set those boundaries, it's easier for you to trust people. So if your main strategy going through life is, I want to assume that people are doing their best. Maybe they're acting, in your point of view, stupid or cruel or selfish or whatever. But if you assume that deep down they're doing the best they can at that moment, it makes your life better and it makes other people's lives better, because then you kind of can lift people up. But in order for you to be able to feel that, you have to also let everybody that gives you a feeling, it's about how you feel. If everybody who gives you a feeling of they're trying to hurt me, they're trying to do something bad to me, may it be realistic or not, that you don't allow that feeling in. That you kind of say, no, I'm not having that. And then you push that out. And you'll be surprised how many people actually really adapt to that. And it's just not because people are nice or kind or so on, which, I would like to assume that they are in most cases, unless they're, some psychopaths or whatever, all kinds of people exist. But what I'm saying is, since we're social creatures, normally if you set a boundary of, I don't want to go there, I don't want to think about that, I don't want you in my space like that, in that kind of way. And it's very, very specific. There's no such thing as saying, well, isn't that obvious that people shouldn't do that? No, it's not obvious, because the way people do that certain thing probably affects you specifically and not everybody around, because you're the one who was affected by this. Nobody has set that boundary yet. This is something that you feel very intensely, and that person next to you, who could also be an INFJ, will feel it at another place. It's very, very individualistic. But what I'm trying to say is, once you push that out, once you set that boundary, people will adapt. They will know that they won't get a reaction from you from that place, because most of the time when people are doing something that gives you an impression of, oh, they're trying to hurt me, or they're trying to be mean to me or whatever, there's always some kind of reaction people are expecting. And if you're not giving them the reaction, then they will just not keep going in that area, because they know there's nothing there. You won't react to that. It doesn't exist anymore. It's like a sphere that just disappeared. And what we have to learn is to be strong enough to really set those boundaries and to say, okay, I'm not gonna take anything good and anything bad, because I want to assume, and this is the most important thing, I want to assume that you're trying your best and you're trying to do good. And in order to do that, you have to set those boundaries far. You have to set really clear rules about what you consider good behavior and whatnot. And don't be afraid that you're gonna get too too judgmental or anything, because all you do is just state what hurts you, what you think is not right behavior. Let's say you're very much into animal rights, okay? And you can't take it if people are buying meat. Just a general example, I'm not vegan, I'm not vegetarian, I don't have a connection to these kind of areas, but that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of people who really are very passionate about this and know that this is their truth. And if they want to assume that people are good, then they shouldn't let people that deep into their space who do not care about those things, who really just, have no respect for animals like this. The further they have that, if they, for example, know me from far away and I'm not, we're not talking about these issues, we're not getting really close, it's much easier for them to assume that I'm coming from a good place than if we're so close and they see that something that is so part of their personality, something that is so visible to them, is so, I'm being so disrespectful of. And those things exist in different areas, and this is completely normal. And so the way when you do that, the people around you change, the way the people act around you changes, like everything kind of changes. And it's so funny because I used to think, well, the people I'm looking for do not exist. But once I set those boundaries, actually what happened, those people that are like me, I finally saw them because I pushed out everybody who was so dominant in their energy that was not good for me, that I wasn't able to see all those people who meant so much to me. And I also see it with, once I talk about my truth, how other people didn't see me now do see me, because they understand where I'm coming from, they understand who I really am. So I think you can go through life trusting more people and having a better relationship with people around, and really see people much more authentically, because you become authentically if you really work on the way you trust, and not so much about, oh, I'm going to trust that person because I've been friends with them for 8 years, or I'll trust that person because something. Don't set those rules. Just make sure, instead of trying to understand the other person and gain their trust, much more give trust out. If you want a trustful relationship, the first thing you have to do is really give trust to others, and not try to win their trust so they trust you. Trust them. That's the main thing, that will make this thing work. That is so that people, and me included, used to do wrong, where you said, oh, I want to do everything right, everything how the other person wants it, so I'll gain their trust. No, trust them. And in order to trust them, you have to have firm boundaries. You have to say, no, I'm not having that. That's not happening. You want to be in my life? One way or another, if you just want to feel my energy around, I'm not accepting of that. And then people will either completely go away, or sometimes they will channel that energy that is vital to them that you cannot take in some other place. And that way you really put that other person on the same level as you, because you're being honest to them. You're not putting yourself, oh, I'm a godly, or I'm a martyr, or whatever. You don't put yourself above them or below them or whatever it is, but you put yourself in the most respectful way, which is, looking eye to eye, being honest, setting firm boundaries, and then giving out your trust. Okay, that's it on the trust topic, and I try to make the videos a little shorter now, so let's see how this goes. Talk to you soon. Bye.